it's just not enough anymore to be able to, make episodes and make repurposed content and clips and reels and blogs. We have hundreds of agencies all selling exactly the same thing. And that is a recipe for commoditization. And I don't like seeing that.
Hey there, this is Podjunction Podcast, the show where business leaders share how they use podcasting to grow, connect, and build their brands. We also explore smart strategies that can make your podcast even more powerful. I'm Sadaf Bainan, and today I'm talking to David Ledgerwood. Ledge has spent the last 20 years building and scaling B2B service businesses, founding more than 10 firms, wearing every C-level hat, and closing millions in deals. These days, he runs 3 companies, Listen Network, Riggg, and Ad10, helping agencies grow, look great on video, and close more deals. Oh, and he's also hosted over 400 podcast episodes himself, guested on more than 100 others. David, it's so good to have you here.
It is so good to be here. Thank you for asking me.
You're very welcome. David, we started chatting on LinkedIn back in January. And I remember one of the things you said to me was that podcasting margins have tightened a lot since the COVID surge. And thinking about it, that's a pretty big shift from the days when podcasting felt like an easy win. So I was wondering, can we start there? What's really happening in the podcasting and agency world right now?
As we record this, I just posted about that today. And so I welcome anybody to look at my history there. And, there had been this recent story about, you probably saw it, where some Point something AI or one of these companies came out. It's a former person from Wondery, and they're making all AI podcasts for like $1 an episode. And they're just flooding with episodes, fake hosts, fake content, just everything is AI generated, and they can make a bunch of money on ads. And, I use that as a entry point to say, not to pat myself on the back, but I've been saying this for, well over a year now, that as podcast agency owners, it's not 2018 or 2019 anymore. And I got started in the space back then, and it was new and novel to produce podcasts for clients. At that point, people started to really get into it. And I know this because I sold it. You could pretty much mark up just producing content, 100%, like just, make good money on that. And that ran pretty hot until 2022-ish. And things started to really fall off there. And there was consolidation, and, all the big money was not being spent. And I think that being a relative expert in agency economics, you need to make a 40% gross margin as an agency in order to really, get sort of stay alive and profitable and, have some kind of future with it. And if we can't mark up creating content at least that much, then you're going to have a problem. And I see that happening. And I've talked to hundreds of agencies in podcasting and content and, sort of strategic content consulting and different things like that. And it's just not enough anymore to be able to, make episodes and make repurposed content and clips and reels and blogs. And, so all the stories that we've been telling for 6-7 years, AI, offshoring, people flooding the market with all kinds of cheap content. I don't think that playbook, really hits anymore. And so I've been a big advocate of, can we at least as an industry start paying attention to that? You just simply cannot make as much money as you used to. And we have hundreds of agencies all selling exactly the same thing. And that is a recipe for commoditization. And I don't like seeing that because I love this space and I've been in this space, and it adds a lot of value. But I would like to at least call attention to this idea that let's take our heads out of the sand on that. So.
Yeah. So where would you say that podcasting still earned its keep?
Think of podcasting. I've been thinking about this a lot, and thank you for asking. So I think we use podcast and video and things like that, like as a noun a lot. But I think the critical way to think about it is like as a verb, right? And in the sense of And there's this whole debate about, audio and video, right? Like, should I do an audio podcast? Should I do a video podcast? Like, how about we all just say we want to cast our
Mm,
ideas out into an audience space that people can consume it because our ideas are valuable. So the verb to cast. I
mm,
don't really care what format that's in or what channel I use. The idea is I'm distributing ideas and my ideas are valuable. And if we, kind of think about it that way, when has it not been the case that a business or a professional or a personal brand or whoever it is, nonprofit, anything, like we've always needed to cast our ideas out and try
mm,
to get people to pay attention to them. And so, in that sense, where does podcasting matter? It matters the same way as all talking, as all conversations, as all strategic, valuable things we have to say to our potential market or potential donors or anybody, right? Like underwriters, sponsors, like we must put ideas out there. We must cast the line or cast the message out into the space. So it's critically valuable. And
mm.
it's in a world where you can now generate unlimited writing that may or may not be good. Um, how often are we going to get to soon? We may be in this spot where this conversation is just, you know, uh, our two AI avatars talking to each other, and we don't produce anything, sort of human anymore. And I don't like that. So I think that in that sense, podcasting of whatever form and conversation, that's what really matters, right? It's like, it's just gonna be critical. Like soon, the least amount of content or, sort of the special content will be the messy ones created by two regular humans talking to each other. I mean, it's really important. I think everybody needs to do that in the same way that in 2008 or 10, you know, you would have made a blog, right? Like you finally could do that. Having a social profile, having different social media, like you just can't not do that. That's what podcasting is going to be. Like you have to do it if you want to have a relevant reach into the space.
No, that's good. Just if you don't mind, just unpacking a little bit more about what you said about um, to cast, so using it as a verb rather than a noun. What does that mean in terms of where you're, so, you talked about audio slash video. Which one would you go for? Do you do both? Is it about going where your audience is, where your customers are? How do you make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would always go video first, right? And I would say
Mhm.
that the the capture, not unlike we're doing now, it doesn't matter if you're going to use necessarily all of the video in long form discussion format. The reality is that capture video because it's a better way to have a conversation and it starts all the way at the top of that sort of content waterfall
Mm,
whereby I mean all these things are still true, right? Like I can derive audio from it. I can derive clips from it. I can, move down that chain into all the way down to, if you still wanted to post on short form sites like X or Twitter or whatever it is now. I don't do that, threads. Um, but you could see that all those ideas are better expressed in long form, right? So then, okay, yeah, where is my potential customer or the person I want to reach? Where do they live? Where do they hang out? Like Reddit is probably ignored in that sense. Like there could be a lot of
mm,
good work there. Um, LinkedIn. Well, we met on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn posts can ultimately be derived, or at least start with the idea that I'm going to put the most advanced version out there. And therefore, I think it should be video. Obviously, YouTube is video. And maybe there's too many shows that are just two heads talking to each other in little windows and we need to be more creative. I don't know. But I think, yes, try to reach the audience that you want to reach. And it goes to my bigger point for our podcast space in general is we have all gotten really myopic about producing the content and maybe have lost track of why we ought to do that in the first place. And
yeah.
that is to reach an audience and have conversations and be strategic content marketers. So what's the business point of doing this? I either have a really expensive hobby or I have a
Yeah.
thing that I'm paying for a business purpose. There's no other choices. And I like to help people figure out, like, okay, why though? Why are you doing this? Like, okay, well, it's to generate more thought leadership or awareness. Like, no, that's not why. Like, what is the business objective of why we're doing
Yeah.
this? Otherwise it's just a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, that's so true and so critical to really understand your why before you jump into something like this. Not just for thought leadership or whatever the it might be, but it's also about for longevity, you have to also enjoy it. Also have
Yes.
to, really own what you're talking about and what you are showing up for.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I can tell you, I mean, I've done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. It's exhausting for me. Like, at one point I had a show that we did every single day, and
Wow.
it was a lot, and I was so tired and I didn't even enjoy it anymore. So, what is the thing that you want to, I mean, I get bored of my own show sometimes if I'm not careful, because it's like I keep talking about the same thing over and over and over again.
Hmm.
It's the same thing happens in my content. But if you have a purpose, your written content, remember, on LinkedIn, your unique ideas probably aren't going to get a lot of traction. So you got to post about the same idea like over and over
Yeah.
and over again, like one message, one audience, over and over. And like, if you aren't
Mm.
bored with that message, you're probably not doing good marketing. Now that's
Yeah.
that's a different disposition than having interesting conversations with people and having a wide ranging discussion pattern, so I get it. Like, it can get actually really super boring. Like, if you're doing
Yeah.
marketing the right way, you might be saying the same thing, kind of over and over again, which becomes exhausting. Like, my last show, 200 episodes in, I'm like, I got to shake this up. Like, I'm
Mm.
so bored. I don't want to ask any of these things again. Like, this is no longer interesting to me. And yeah, I would caution people, be
Mm.
careful with that, and therefore
Mm.
have greater engagement with your audience outside of the podcast, polls, emails, posts, conversations. Like, try to just do things this kind of jazz your brain back up again, because sometimes it's not that fun to sit down and record and turn it into, other stuff.
Mhm. And I guess if you are in your community having those conversations outside of the podcast, then you're also talking about things that are gonna resonate because you know where people's headspaces
I
are.
think that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Join Slack groups, do whatever you do to be a good community contributor. I had to learn, to kind of actively track my idea space in, a notes app or one of these things. Just like, I would have a random interesting topic, and then of course I would forget that I had it because, I didn't write it down, and then it would come up again a few months later, like, oh yeah, I think I had that thought before.
Mhm.
So it doesn't always, like, you have to be strategic and thoughtful about the storage of your own, ideas as well, and then
Yeah.
they might come out in your long form content where you can have more discussion.
David, you built a Listen
I do.
Network and Rig and Add 10. Um, but you built these agencies in particular because you saw that something wasn't working. Can you unpack what those problems were that you set out to solve?
Yes. So it's a winding path of 6 years ago. I left, having done a bunch of different VP of sales types of roles
Mm.
at startups that I was a co-founder of, and I wondered at that point, why could you hire a fractional CMO, a fractional CFO, a fractional CO? You could do all these things, but you couldn't
Mm.
hire a fractional closer. There was all kinds of sales coaches, sales consultants. You could always get somebody to help you sell better, but you couldn't just get somebody to help to actually sell for you.
Mm.
And it wasn't about getting leads, it was about being a closer. So I just like, let's do that. Like, that looks valuable to me. So we built Ad10 for agencies and consultancies and businesses like that, where the founder just didn't want to do it. I don't want to sell. I want to go be a CEO or an operator and run my team and scale my agency And I don't want to think about hiring a VP of sales either. Here, come in and be my sales division. And we can do all that. And so, in the process of running sales to booking many, many millions of dollars for clients, I was therefore talking to their clients and seeing inside their company. And I did this so many times over and over again. I was like, look at these interesting things that happen. And I think we could
Hmm.
solve some of those problems. So Listen Network came out of that because in
Okay.
the podcast agency space, for which I sold millions of dollars of services, the number one reason that clients would churn would say, because what's the ROI and we can't justify this. And when I dug into that, the customer, like we, as an agency, we had a marketer or somebody like that, marketing manager, or, some kind of CMO at a startup. But invariably, that person would have to go to the budget meeting at some point, quarterly, every other half year, whatever it is, and make a presentation for why they should keep getting money to make a podcast.
Hmm.
And always the budget holder would say, how many downloads do you get? And what's the ROI? Every
Yeah.
time. And that person who was a passionate content marketer, or podcast strategist, or podcast owner, like they got it, they knew all the things. Well, it's a long tail and we ought to, we keep developing audience over time, and you really can't measure it that way. And it's really about a small niche audience and talking to all the stuff that we say, right, as an industry, like all of which is true, but that's not the language that the budget holder speaks. The
Yeah.
budget holder speaks the language of data and ROI.
Hmm.
So we would lose sometimes 40% of those
Wow.
clients would get dropped. And like the poor marketers would get laid off who ran podcasts. And then podcasts would get canceled. Agencies would lose clients. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are we doing this? Because what we're really trying to do is force this language upon budget holders who don't want to talk that way. They would talk about performance marketing metrics and numbers. So Listen Network said, well, all right, we can make exact numbers and exact targeting for these downloads so that you can answer the question. You can say, I got 1,000 downloads per episode from mid-level engineering managers at
Hmm.
aerospace companies who happen to be exactly the customer that we were trying to reach. And each one of those required at least 300 brand impressions to get. And here's everything we know about them in a detailed report.
Hmm.
We did that. We started keeping clients because the shows kept getting funded.
Yeah.
And now agencies can use that same functionality. That's what Listen Network does. So it drives up retention of your clients, drives down attrition, and allows you to provide a meaningful paid distribution model, which is even more valuable because social media doesn't reach as much as
Yeah.
it used to. So
Hmm.
5 years ago, you used to get, tens of thousands of impressions on things that now get 20. And you're going to have to pay for traffic. So you might as well
Hmm.
pay for traffic in a way that's designed for podcasts, not just randomly throwing $1,000 at LinkedIn and praying, because that doesn't work. So that's what Listen Network does. We manage paid media campaigns and business intelligence for podcasters, and podcast agencies can use that to keep their clients.
Right.
And in the other case, I looked at production, and that's where our Riggg company came from, RIGG. Um, because we looked at it and said, production is a thing that is, like I said before, it's kind of going to zero. Like making content isn't going to be the thing you can mark up anymore. There are a lot of people who are consultants, strategists, content marketers, executive producers, people who really aspire to work with clients on the strategy of why, again, the why of why we're doing these things for podcasts, like really be the high level strategist, all of whom need to have production, because if there's not production, they can't do the thing that they actually want to do. But then
Hmm.
they end up stuck in this loop where they have to manage production, like a whole bunch of freelancers and workflows and project management and show running and all the back and forth and administration. And it sucks their life out, because what they really want to do is be a strategist or an executive producer. So we said, let's forget the old playbook. Let's build the full back end to provide production services and operations for those people who actually just want to be smart people and be strategists. So that's what Rig does. It allows people to actually do the thing they want to do and not get bogged down in having to manage operations and production.
Hmm.
And it's built AI first, which was hard for a lot of agencies to go. Like, everybody's plugging AI on top now, but you still have the old structure. We said, well, it's 2025. If we're going to start an agency, let's presume that AI is going to stand around. Let's make all of that automation and AI the bedrock and then
Hmm.
build on top of that. So it was just happenstance that it happened to be at the right time where we could say, let's build AI first as an agency and then provide these services. So as a result, it's much, much faster. It's much, much cheaper, and it
Yeah.
can help people, make
Hmm.
have the content produced for them in an excellent, fast way so that they get to actually be the strategists they want to be instead of bogging
Yeah.
down on all the production stuff, which isn't valuable as much as it used to be anyway.
That's right. I mean, I think AI has helped a lot in that sense, taking away the weight of all the really tedious
It can, yeah.
jobs. Yeah.
And if you love building workflows and automations and,
Mm.
agents and all these things, like, that's a full-time job, and by all means do it. But I know there are people who don't want to touch any of those things and just want stuff done. They don't want to be managing an Asana board with 5 freelancers. They want to talk about strategy. They want to talk about being an executive producer and advancing the craft for their clients. If they don't want to do all those other things, they can talk to us about how to do them because we can do it for you and we can do it fast and very affordable. So,
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
sure.
Ledge, when you think about podcasting as a business growth tool, where does it fit best, would you say? Awareness, authority, sales, relationships?
Depending on how you arrange your variables, I guess, your chess
Hmm.
pieces, it could be all of those things. And I would say, in fact, that's the question of the why, right? Like, where does
Hmm.
it fit best? Like, what do you want it to do? Because the way we arrange the pieces in this sort of mosaic first comes back to, why am I doing it? What do I
Hmm.
want to achieve with this? And it can be very specific. So, like, I want leader or C-level leaders at certain types of companies to think of our brand first when they're trying to achieve this thing. Okay,
Hmm.
like, let's go there. And then we say, what tools do we have available? And let's build around where, first of all, are they aware of the problem? This is marketing stuff, right? Do they
Yeah.
know that they have the problem that I'm trying to solve? Because if they don't, I have an awareness problem. I need to educate this market space that you probably don't know you're losing money by doing X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
But if they do know I'm losing money and I really need to solve this, I know exactly what my problem is. Who can solve it for me?
Hmm.
That's a problem aware audience. That's a little bit more of a mid funnel type of marketing, which means, great, I have a problem aware audience and I need to talk to them about me being the solution. They
Hmm.
know the problem exists. They don't know who can solve the problem for them. If I can solve it, okay, that's a different problem, right? So I
Hmm.
can have them as my guest because we can talk shop. So that might speak a little bit more to an ABM style approach or, something like that. So
Hmm.
the answer is, it's all those things, but you got
Yeah.
to pick, like, I think of it like a carousel at the amusement park, like, it's all one system. I don't care which pretty horse you get on, just get on a horse, because now you're in the system. And it's
Yeah.
my job, our job as content marketers and, podcast systems thinkers to create a fun ride. So one horse is the email list, one horse is the podcast, one horse is my LinkedIn
Hmm.
profile posts, one horse is my LinkedIn live or webinars, and all those things. Let's make them chase each other so it goes
Yeah.
around and around and around, and the ride is fun and it makes pretty lights. I mean, that's our job, right? So I don't care which horse you get on, but I need to know, like, do they like
Hmm.
the purple horse, or do they like, what are we trying to do here? So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That you've sold podcast agency services for 5 years now, hosted, as we said earlier, 400 and more shows. You guessed it, on 100 more. That's a lot of conversations that you will have had. What's the biggest lesson you've learned about what makes podcasting work versus just becoming content that no one possibly listens to?
That has definitely evolved. I mean, it used to be
Mm,
enough to just, I used to think of it like, I don't care if I even have an audience, like, because I
mm,
was very specifically inviting my target market executive to be my guest. So in a sense was, as long as one person listens to it and it's that person, I don't care. And then, but it has evolved since then, where it was,
mm.
let's, um, create a little bit more conversation distribution, kind of outside of the podcast realm. And so I think the most important thing now, when I have my eyes to the new way of, sort of more
Mm,
ecosystem based, is I would be thinking most, and I am thinking most about a podcast working together, like I just said with the carousel. So
yeah.
the most valuable thing I think would be, if you do nothing else, convert your podcast listeners to your email list. And maybe there's a Substack or community type of vibe built into there, or it's built around your LinkedIn audience. And so how does each one of those things feed the next one? We sort of get like a flywheel of content that builds engagement. It is definitely not enough to treat these as, we used to do sort of
Mm,
hub and spoke type of thing. It's like there's me in the middle and I have a podcast and I have a channel on YouTube. I have email content. I have a blog, but none of those things really worked
connect. Yeah.
together.
Mm,
So now I think it's more like I'm the brand, or I am the thing in the middle that's making sure that each of those talk to each other and keep
yeah.
driving momentum
Mm,
around, it's not community, because I know people use that word, differently, but it's around, exposure and using the content in different ways. Like, I don't think it's in
mm,
repurposing, because repurposing was, again, like a spoke of saying, I'm going to put out reels so
yeah.
they're aware of my podcast, but it wasn't, that's not exactly right. Now I think it's like, I'm going to use different content for different purposes, to drive to my other content, to drive to an owned
Mm,
audience, to then be able to actively engage with people that now have names and, places that I can reach them. So, and that's not new for anybody that was doing strategic content marketing. It's just now I think podcasting is starting to be, in good reason, I think, is being
mm.
absorbed into the strategic content marketing type of space. And I think that's right. I think we should all be highly aware of that. And it's a good thing. So
Yeah. So just going back to what you said earlier about, your analogy of the horses and the carousel. What would you say are, I guess, maybe the top horses that we should be thinking about?
if I only had two, I think it would be email and podcast. And so in the sense of like, one of these great platforms, like a Beehive
Yeah.
plus podcast and passing back and forth or something like that. So, for example, a really quick trick could be, in every podcast episode, you might run your own kind of ad and say, like,
Yeah.
don't don't worry about taking notes today. I'm going to provide you a checklist of every single thing that you need to do to make actionable stuff. I really want you to listen. And at the end of the episode, you can go to this URL, join my list. I'm going to make sure every single episode I send you like a very clear action list on email, so you can just stop and think. None of us like taking notes, right? So
Hmm.
let's just stop and think. Don't worry about it. I'll put the class notes in your email for you. Sign up
Hmm.
for that. And then in each of those, you're sending additional content that says, remind people that the other lesson exists for a previous episode. So those two pieces can work together really well. If you give me a third one, I'm going to say LinkedIn probably. So
Okay. Hmm. So for things like reels, shorts, they're just awareness. They're not really actually part of the strategic carousel as you would see it.
I know that, I mean, I'll probably get hate mail for saying this,
That's
but I don't
okay.
see it. Short-term video has
Yeah.
never appealed to me. As far as I can tell, the reach is useless. I can understand it as maybe mini lessons, but I don't think they usually come out of podcast content. I think you can make short form video that uses some of those ideas and presents that well in a consumable fashion. So that makes sense to me. But the idea of repurposing little blobs from your podcast, I've never been sold on it. And I don't
Yeah.
see that the engagement is that great. But I
Mm,
do think it can be valuable for the standpoint of facial awareness, right? Or sort of brand awareness. Like, if you look at how a lot of people consume these things, you just watch a kid do it. They don't even have the volume on. They just
yeah.
watch a bunch of reels, but they know who everybody is. And I could see that being somewhat valuable, but I just think the idea that we're going to get meaningful business results out of being in a thing that gets a lot of views, maybe from a repetition standpoint, I don't know. Not a fan. I know some people live and die by this. They love it. It's not my favorite channel at all.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Well,
Yeah. And not
you
to
can
mention,
make
there's really,
shorts of me though. I mean, like, this is going to be great, you know.
oh, yeah, of course. Of course. Not to mention, they're always really tedious as well. They take time to put together.
I mean, I know the tools, help you throw together and choose clips now and what
Mm,
I have never, still to this day, if it, you could go AI start to finish on a lot of stuff.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do not think that the clip selection is quite that good.
No, it's
Um,
not.
Maybe someday you'll be able to plug in and be like, find me the smartest clip that will make me famous. I don't see it. That's the one piece that when we're building workflows, not the one piece, but one of the pieces that we go, like, we cannot trust any of these things. We have used AI to go, here's a selection of some stuff based on what you told us in your writing samples that came out in that episode that exists between these two timestamps. And we suggest that this might be one for you, but please approve this before we go and clip it, because it just doesn't, they don't hit.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't I don't get it. I mean, and
Mm.
I'm glad you agree. I know
Yeah,
some
I'm with
people
you.
swear by this, and maybe for consumer
Yeah.
things, I'm largely a
Mm,
B2B person.
mm.
Um, I don't see it, and I don't think it adds value.
No, I wonder whether there's also the element of getting pulled in by by the the likes and the views, just like, oh, a lot of people are interested, so I better keep making them.
I
But
have
that
never
doesn't
been pulled in by
necessarily
the likes
mean
and views because nobody pays attention to mine. So
no, same
maybe
here.
I would become a convert if anybody ever liked or saw anything that I did. But yeah, I think it
Mm,
probably feels good. And I know on YouTube Shorts, a lot of people say that, like, the reach on our shorts is amazing. But it's like, I don't know. It doesn't convert to anything. And I think
mm,
that's because it algorithmically swipes through. And again, I know this watching my kids. I'm like, what are you even watching? I don't know. Like, and I think adults do it too. They just
mm.
mindlessly flip to the next
Y-
short or reel, and that counts as a view. But who cares? Like, it doesn't mean anything.
That's right. That's totally right. Why did you say LinkedIn?
Well, I quit all other social media several years ago, and I'm glad I never went back. It feels very toxic and gross to me. So
Mm,
again, my own personal bias, I will say LinkedIn. I mean, like, we're doing it right now, right? Like, we met on LinkedIn and we're
yeah.
having conversations and we're doing, some business stuff. I just feel like it's where legitimate connections can happen.
Hmm.
I hear all the complaints, and I have the same complaints about the algorithm and whatnot, but it forces you to do work to actually find the interesting people who are in your space. And, it's
Hmm.
like, if you have the discipline, where else are you going to go that people have real names, real
Yeah.
places they work? they're not just trolls. They're not just like weird
Mm,
bots. And so, I mean, I get all those problems exist, but we can have real conversations. It's the world's
mm,
CRM. Like, I mean, what could possibly be better for business? So I don't really understand why anybody would not
mm,
do that. Now I
mm,
get it. Like people don't understand. That's like, oh, if I post a post, nobody sees it. What's the big like? That's not the point. Like get out there and comment and be a part of a conversation and actually chat with people. And I mean, my DMs
mm,
are on fire all the time. And I also say that when I post meaningful content, even though LinkedIn will tell me like, congratulations, you got, you know, 75 impressions. I just spent an hour on that. But for Listen Network and for Riggg and all these things that I do, I can tell you that almost every single inbound, cold inbound that looks like nothing, like I don't know who this is, they will tell me, I read your content. So it doesn't matter if it's seven. I mean, would I take 75 new clients? Like, sure. What if 10% of that 75 impressions comes in as a cold inbound because they now trust me and believe me? Like, that's pretty awesome for an
mm,
agency. Like, I'll take it. So, think about like that stuff. That's why LinkedIn is important to me because I can say qualitatively, I'm sure like I ultimately found you because it's like I'm involved in the podcast space and I'm an agency. Like that's my client. So cool. Like I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna, comment on your stuff whenever I can see it. And I'm gonna make an effort to, actually be a friend and be a meaningful contributor. And I think that pays off. And I see it all the time in my sales process.
I like World CRM. I like that.
Yeah, you can use that whenever you
Oh,
want.
thank you.
I don't know if I made that up, but LinkedIn, if you guys need marketing help, you guys give me a ring. All right. So
Yeah,
first fix
that's
your
great.
algorithm now. Yeah.
Yeah, then we'll talk.
Yeah.
David, looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of podcasting? Where do you see the biggest opportunities?
I think the most exciting thing is going to be that in a world that will, who knows what this is going to look like, right? Like with the AI and, avatars that can talk for you and all this stuff. Like the people who actually do the work and have legitimate, real conversations, like I just think that's awesome. Like I'm an
Hmm,
interdisciplinary polymath nerd and I want to talk about stuff with people.
hmm,
And I don't get to go out and have coffee meetings with you're in England right now and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. And I mean, we're never going to get to sit down in the same room and like riff on coffee, but we can do this. And I
hmm,
think that's special and important. So, I mean, that's always the part that's going to be exciting. And when you only think of it as a business asset, you just don't enjoy yourself anymore.
hmm,
So keep that. Like the only thing, it's going to be special that we make human content at all. I mean, everything is going to be fake. All this user generated content, right? UGC, right? Let's market with UGC. It's like, don't you know? Like, I mean, people are like, you can't generate
hmm,
UGC because it's not a you. It's not a user, like at all. It's fake. So real stuff, I think, is going to make all the difference when
hmm.
most of the content is garbage. So,
Yeah, yeah. And we were talking earlier about AI and in this day and age of AI, video first, tighter budgets, all that. What separates the shows, do you think, that grow from the ones that fade out?
I mean, you just have to be saying interesting things and find the right
Mm,
audience, right? I mean, I'm a weirdo. So like the very few podcasts that I actually consume, I'll go back to the beginning and listen
mm.
from episode
Oh,
1
wow.
all the way through. And it's because I find the thing that I like and I want to consume all of it. It's like binging content forever. So I don't know if other people do that. But I will say that, it's a way to get to know people that you might want to do business with. Like, I mean, anybody that listens to
Mm,
this is definitely not my marketing face. Like, this is how I talk, this is how I work. And I try to
mm,
show up in a place where I think my people who I might want to be collaborators with are also hanging out. So maybe it's not, maybe the obsession with growing a show is the wrong thing. Maybe
Hmm.
it's, I provide information and useful, compelling stuff for a very small group of people, but I do it really well.
Hmm.
So if I care about podcast agencies, then there's what, like 800,000 of them maybe in the world? I don't even know. Like, do I care that I reach 100 million people? No, I care that I reach 1,000 people. But it's the
Hmm.
same thing that music went through in a lot of indie artists. Like there's famous, articles, I forget what it is, 1,000 raving fans or something like that. Like I would focus on being the best in a tiny niche if I cared about, growing a show. I want to make sure that I know exactly who those people are and I want to be in front of them.
Hmm.
And that's good enough for me. If you want to
Hmm.
grow an audience because you want to monetize traffic, well, that's a totally different thing. I'd still say you want to be a niche, and I'd still say that advertising is probably a horrible way to make money. But maybe sponsors, want to reach, like you need a compelling audience, an audience who cares about you and what you say, and you build a community with them
Hmm.
because that's what sponsors want to buy too. So one way or another, you either, again, it comes back to you have a very expensive hobby or you have a business. Which one?
Yeah. Know your why, your purpose.
Mhm.
And I like what you're saying, the distinction you're making of what grow actually would mean for someone. I really like that because I think you're absolutely right that if you're in your niche and you're talking and delivering valuable content to people who need it, who want
Right.
it, then that's enough.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. Like, why are we doing this again? Like,
Yeah.
who do I want to care?
Mm.
Maybe I just want my mom to listen and still like me, I mean, and that's fine. I can always count. I'll get one listen. Thanks, mom. You know,
Love it. Ledge, one last question. If a founder came to you today worried about ROI but curious about podcasting, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
yeah, the one piece of advice. Let's see. I would say, what what does ROI mean? All right. Like, how would I know that if ROI dropped in my lap, what would it look like? That's what I would want to know. Right. So if ROI is I must generate some clients. Okay, cool. Let's work on that. If ROI is broader awareness and recognition that I exist, like, okay, let's work on that. Right. So the
Mm.
one piece of advice is just slow down. Don't just think I want a podcast. It's the same thing as like I want a car. What car do you want? Do you need to have a big truck because you need to carry rocks, or do you want to have a sports car because you need to go fast and look cool? Like, I mean, which one? Like, what? Why? And so I guess, yeah, the advice would be just slow down and think prior to giving yourself a prescription for a disease maybe you don't even have. Like, don't be that person.
David, this has been such a fun and insightful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Very welcome. Before you go, if someone wants to learn more about your work or connect with you directly, where should they go to do that?
Definitely LinkedIn. David Ledgerwood. You can find me. Look for the bald head and the beard that is not as gray as you'll see on this episode. So I'm still faking it on the old headshot there.
Love it. Great. And to those listening in, thank you for being here. The links that Les just mentioned can be found in the show description. And here's what I hope you take away from today. Even in a tighter market, podcasting still works when you stop treating it like just content and instead focus on strategy, systems, and the conversations that actually drive growth. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.